Hey everybody, I am Zach. This is the only time you'll see my prop. This is Batman. Here. Look at Batman. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. That quote is from Batman himself. Throughout my life, I have had an interest in Batman, from movies to the uncomfortable hell that was the original Adam West TV show. Batman has always been a part of my life in some incarnation. Batman is one of the most identifiable superheroes there is, and it is important to understand the beginnings and methods of Bruce Wayne to truly enjoy the character. Batman spent his life after the death of his parents dedicated to avenging their deaths and making sure what happened to him won't happen to anyone else. During this speech, I will cover 3 topics. I will discuss the death of his parents, I will talk about his travels and training with Henry Dunkard, and then I will talk about his methods and why he does what he does. To start us off, Batman came from a loving family, where he was the center of his parents' worlds, until one night at the theater. Bruce Wayne decided to leave the theater because of the trauma with bats he came across earlier in the week, after falling into a well and being attacked by them. It's important to note that during the play, there were bats involved. As they were walking from the opera house, they met a man in an alley. This man, looking homeless, wanted the Waynes' money and jewelry. The Waynes obliged, except for the mother's pearl necklace, and they were both shot and killed, leaving Bruce alone. Bruce was then considered an orphan. His parents gave Alfred the permission to raise him as his own and become the parent figure that he needed. Because this was only a verbal agreement, Alfred and Leslie Tompkins, a social worker and friends of the Waynes, fought to keep him, and they ended up winning. After many years of care, Bruce then decided to leave Gotham and train to avenge his parents. And through his training, he met many people that helped him, the most well-known being Henry Dunkard. So Batman or Bruce Wayne traveled to Paris to find Henry. When he arrived in Paris, Dunkard knew that he has arrived, but he wanted to test Bruce to make sure that he was worthy of being trained by him. So Dunkard sent his only son to test Bruce. They met in an alley, and Morgan ended up fighting Bruce. Bruce ended up winning the fight, but right after he won the fight, Dunkard put a gun to Bruce's head for humiliating his son. Batman, being trained at the time, didn't fight him with any weapons. He fought him from a more psychological standpoint, and he won once more. Dunkard agreed to train Bruce. For the next several months, he trained Bruce and Morgan. This was in hopes that they would eventually team up together and they would end up killing people. After months of training, Bruce decided to leave because he did not want to kill for justice. As we see during the original story, something clicked in Bruce's head since his parents' death. But what is that something? Now we should dig into the psychology of who he is and how he fights villains. So the big 2 things that we're going to be talking about are Bruce's uniform and then his wards. So it's important to note that Bruce does not believe that he is a bat, so there's no psychological issues within that. The only reason he dresses as a bat is because he believes the criminals are superstitious. So his uniform must strike fear into them. He chose a bat because they are creatures of the night. They're black and they are terrible. Now we need to go into his wards. Bruce had wards since he was generative. Through the works of Erik Erikson, this means that he wants to be a guide to the next generation. One of the most well-known of these wards is Dick Grayson. When Bruce originally found Dick, he discovered that he witnessed his parents' murders. He took him in to help Dick understand he was not alone, and he was not isolated, which is something that Bruce struggled with throughout his whole life. Later on, Dick would be well known as Robin, alongside Batman. So reviewing the 3 main points, during Bruce Wayne's childhood, he was left alone, only to be watched by his butler after his parents were murdered. Throughout his travels, he found a man named Henry Duncan that trained Bruce in finding people and getting information out of them. After his travels, he came back home and became the man that people know as Batman through his need to help the next generation and his need to strike fear into criminals in order to avenge his parents' death. Batman spent his life after the death of his parents dedicated to avenging their deaths and making sure what happened to him won't happen to anybody else. So in conclusion, Bruce Wayne is a man that has experienced a traumatic childhood that has led to his current lifestyle and the vigilante we know as Batman.
Good job. Did you like it, Bentley?
Does Morgan become a villain?
What?
Does Morgan become a villain?
No. Morgan ends up dying.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's a lot of that stuff from? Like the
Comic books?
Comic books.
comic book.
Yeah.
How about the guy?
What? I don't remember how he dies. Yeah.
So his best friend died.
Well, the one guy's son.
One guy's son.
The guy who makes all the gadgets.
But I assume he's kind of his best friend if they were kind of training together to be superheroes together.
Well, the issue was